very good morning, and it's great to be back at STEP. Please join me in congratulating STEP for bringing this great event back after a lapse of a couple of years. Thank you, Philip, for the amazing insights. Really eye-opener in terms of the data that you shared, which gives me the right segue into the next topic, which is the world is looking into the MENA region specifically as emerging markets. And I want to bring it on a panel to talk a little bit about what the opportunities are, what are the challenges, as well as what they see as the different nuance different during each market. So joining me on stage is firstly Amal Dokhan from 500 Global. Please put your hands together for that. Ravishankar from Sequoia. Walid Faza from KSA Capital, and Jehan from Katalyst Labs. Please join us. Well, very good morning, panelists, and thank you for joining me as well, and great to see you guys. And how about we start with a very brief introduction of yourselves and your organizations. I think many of you don't need a lot of introduction as such, your household names, but for the benefit of the crowd, let's kick off with you, Walid, and we'll just go around the sofa.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Walid Faza. I'm a partner at MSA Capital. MSA Capital is a Chinese venture capital fund, $2 billion of assets under management, 4 funds in China, and this is the first emerging markets funds that we have started to invest into emerging markets, including Latin America, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa.
Jehan?
My name is Jehan. I am the founder of Katalyst Labs, which is an accelerator and a women leadership fellows initiative. I've been part of the Pakistan startup ecosystem for the last, I think, 10 years. I started an incubator in 2015, which I ran for 6 years. And before that, I've also been part of the tech ecosystem for the last 20 years. So Pakistan is where I'm at. But I travel globally and connect as many of the startups and investors as I possibly can. Super excited about what's happening in Pakistan right now.
Thank you for joining us.
Hi, my name is Ravishankar. I represent Sequoia Capital. We are a global venture capital and early growth equity firm. I am a partner at the India Southeast Asia business, which has been around for now 16 plus years, and I've been at the firm for 16 years as well. And I recently moved to Dubai and kind of started looking at this ecosystem amongst other things that I do. I'm super excited to see what's going on here and be a part of the story.
And I would wish that this could be your home for a long time.
Time will tell.
Thank you. My name is Amal Dokhan. I'm a partner at 500 Global. 500 Global, previously known as 500 Startups. Actually, it's a San Francisco-based company. It's a venture fund. We invest through accelerator programs, but we also have our own funds where we invest directly. We're present at, funds in LATAM and Southeast Asia, and recently added the Sanabil 500 Seed Accelerator, headquartered in Riyadh, but we invest in the MENA region. We basically look for pre-seed and seed stage companies to invest in. So very excited to be here, looking forward to speaking to a lot of the entrepreneurs and a lot of the partners that facilitate our job, obviously, and value add to all of the entrepreneurs. A pleasure to be among this wonderful panel as well.
Thank you, Amal.
Thank you.
Well, great. Let's dive into it. I guess with the exception of Jehan, the three of you represent global funds and specifically looking into coming to the Middle East to look for opportunities. Let's open up the conversation with what do you look at in terms of how do you strategize your go-to-market strategy in terms of looking to invest, whether it's seeds, pre-seed, or later-stage companies? Speak to us to that in terms of how do you see your strategy? Maybe we'll take it from Amal first.
Definitely different markets. Obviously, 500 looks for markets that has concentration of talents, because that's what you look for. You look for founders and people that are willing to take the risk and go to the next level, obviously, in their ventures. And as I mentioned, there's different funds, but MENA region in particular, 500 have invested its first actually deal in 2012. So we're not new to the region, but it took time where we started, different funds, and now we have the Sanabil. So definitely that kind of founders concentration, and then you want an exciting market, basically, where they can test, where they can prototype, where they are able to evolve really and scale, hopefully with time, and grow their businesses. And another thing, obviously, is the availability of liquidity, because you want them, when we fund them at pre-seed and seed stage, hopefully they find a little bit of downstream capital, and that we're seeing actually in the MENA region a lot, where it's evolving. And I think the last point I would say, the signs and the positive signs of the movement of regulatory aspects where they move, with the founders. So I think all of those, if they are at an early stage, we could be a player so early because we can participate in that. I think in the previous session, Mr. Amar mentioned how accelerators can actually work with the government closely to facilitate that, convey the message. And that's a role we play with most of the accelerator programs. We could lobby with them, we could basically transfer that message, and obviously cultivate the relationships at any entrepreneurial ecosystem we exist in. So I think it's just being there. And what we call now our strategy is being hyper-local. So we set up teams, we set up funds, and we actually station there, so we have the overview in the different countries in the region, and that will be the first step, obviously.
I love this phrase, hyperlocal, that you brought out, and I think that speaks to the success of Founder Global, where you specifically are looking to raise funds from the region and then focus investments in the region. Absolutely. And that differentiates you from other investment houses. Moving on to GB, you've got tremendous experience out in India and also Southeast Asia. Speak to us about, when you look at emerging markets, how is this region different from the other two continents that you've been working with?
That's a great question. And so when we entered India, that was 2006, and it was a super early market. Just to contextualize that market, then we had probably 30 million internet users at that time, 2006. We had $700 per capita GDP, which is by all means a poor country. And definition of broadband was 256 kbps, which today none of us will touch if that's what's available from a telecom company, right? So things were super early when we came to India. But there was desire and ambition. And I want to kind of backtrack and say, and compare that to where we are here today. Of course, things are a lot more developed in the region, right? And so the first question that I had when I came to this region is, so what should we look for? Like, what's the core intrinsic thing that we're looking for? And maybe a 2-minute digression, but I want to talk about the story of a gentleman called Roger Bannister. He's credited as the first guy to run a mile under 4 minutes. Right? The 4-minute mile is now popular, was first broken in 1954. Right? Till then, it was considered impossible to do. You cannot run a mile in 4 minutes. And once he did it in 1954, now there are 1,400 people that have done since, and so now it's possible, right? So it goes back to belief. So the question is, do people here, the founders here, believe that they can build large, global, world-beating companies, world-class companies? And if that belief is there, then all the other restrictions we talk about, market size, all of that is real, but solvable. Talent, all of this is solvable, right? So as we meet more founders, we're really looking to see whether people believe that they can build these large companies. And I'm kind of very happy to say, when I came in, I was like, hey, will ambition be an issue in this market? Because we've seen that in the past in India. We've seen that in Southeast Asia, that ambition in the early days is an issue because they've not really seen other people having done it. Thankfully, here you have example in Kareem and, the fact that you can build a $3-4 billion company and they're still building. So, you start to see people have that belief. And so for me, at least, that's really the core ingredient. So it starts with belief. And, but there are challenges. We all know each market is kind of a silo. It's not like you start here and it just naturally progresses everywhere. You have to solve for individual markets. Dubai, of course, is different from Saudi, is different from Egypt. And while founders are not talking about this as a region, you still have to succeed in each market with its own nuances, cultural, differences, and so on. So I think that's number one challenge people have to overcome. Second is just talent density. And to Amal's point, you mentioned this point, but it's important to find the depth of talent. And, for us as Sequoia, whenever we go into a market, we do look for density of tech talent in particular, because those are the people that will step out and build. And you want those builders, not just the business MBA types who went to Harvard, came back. It's all good, but unless you have the core problem-solving ability to build yourselves, write the first piece of code, we have a challenge. So the deeper that market becomes, the better it is for this ecosystem. And so I know a lot of initiatives going on from the government to kind of get more coders and more developers in the ecosystem. I think that's great, and more of it needs to be done for us to see the depth, right? And, the last thing is, of course, exits, but I worry a little bit less about exits. And, and because I've spent 16 years in India, and we had the same question in India for the first 10, 12, 13 years, saying, hey, where are the exits? Where are the exits? We haven't seen the tech IPOs and so on. The fundamental insight we came to is, look, exits will happen when companies of scale are built, right? So first, try and achieve a 100 million revenue company. If you have a 100 million revenue company, that's some benchmark, right? And once you get there, exit doors open up, whether it's, global companies interested in those companies of scale, or public markets receiving you favorably because you've proven something, but build companies of scale. And today, in India, we see, last year we had 80, or as of now we have 81 private unicorns. So that number keeps going up every day. So I don't track particularly, but these things are possible because companies of scale are getting built. So it's really about that. So exit gets taken care of over a period of time, but really it comes back to saying, do you have the belief? Can you solve the problems of multiple markets and and talent?
If I may, we talk about, say, seeking an opportunity to invest in a startup. We look at the $100 million threshold as an opportunity. But perhaps India, if I can argue, is not a fair comparison, because just at the sheer size, scale, and market opportunities when you compare to, say, this part of the world. And I think the MENA region is a lot more fragmented. Perhaps Southeast Asia could be a more comparable, match. So speak to us a little bit about, what still excites you if the markets here may not potentially find companies of that scale or scalability.
Yeah. So one observation we have in markets that are not particularly deep is companies have to build multiple things as a platform, right? So you take somebody like Gojek in Indonesia, which is now GoTo after the merger with Tokopedia. They built a super app, much like Kareem was trying to build it today here. So this kind of behavior where you don't have specific segments having very, very large companies, but a few things being done by the first few platform companies that emerge, I think that opportunity is real, right? So clearly, if somebody can start somewhere and then say, hey, I'm going to use the initial success to do more things, I think we think that kind of a company can be built, or similar models can be built, whether it's super app or even if you're a SaaS company, you can, build on adjacencies, etc. Right? The reason it's interesting is I do think, unlike India or China, where there is this large market, but there's also like 50 companies doing the same thing. Right? You start something and the third day, talk about IP protection, there's nothing, right? Like everybody else is doing the same thing. And so you will see significant competition. And I think India is okay. China is even worse in terms of just the bloodbath when it comes to kind of company building, just everybody doing the same thing, right? So a market like this will it's unlikely to go that direction because there are fewer companies, there's just fewer talent, there's fewer capital, a few capital. So capital will only go to a few companies, and that will be a differentiator to start with. Those people with capital will attract the talent that you need to build those great companies. And so to that extent, you may have smaller markets, but probably larger share of the market. Right. And so that's at least our hypothesis. We may be proven wrong. I don't know. We're still too early. I wouldn't say we know anything yet, but hopefully it plays out that way. And that's the bet we're placing.
I'm marking every word you said, so we'll check on you in a few years. Sure. Well, if I can come to you, when you look at, say, China, for example, it's hyper competitive. To GV's point, when you look at an idea that's out in the market within a day, you get 1,000 companies doing the same thing. Looking into this region, how do you find that similar opportunity, if not rate of return, from an investor?
So I agree totally. China is a bloodbath when it comes to something that works and everybody tries to replicate things. So we've been fortunate enough to back the industry leaders in a lot of different sectors in China. And that melting pot has basically allowed us to almost have a crystal ball and see what works in the future if we look at emerging markets, right? So if we focus on fintech or if we focus on logistics, having a company survive and scale successfully in such a difficult market as China tells you that that business model works. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that we can copy and paste that into emerging markets because of the intricacies of each of the conundrums that you have and the cultural differences that you have in emerging markets, but at least it gives us an insight in terms of mobile first, fintech, what is working at scale, right? So we have the Chinese lens that we kind of look at emerging markets. And we took a conscious decision to come to the Middle East and Africa because it's kind of the cheaper tech real estate that you can get into very quickly at valuations that kind of make sense compared to what's happening in India and other places. Clearly, we came in around 2.5 years ago. Now we see valuations skyrocket. And that was part of our thesis was, okay, there's a gap in the Series B, so we want to come in and put bigger checks. But then when the valuations went up, we kind of took a step back and said, wait, hold on, we have to come in earlier now. So now MSA does a multi-stage strategy that we can do tickets of $50K and we can do tickets of $10 million and above. So that gives us the big pockets to do that. Right. And we really think we can bring a lot of expertise and know-how through our technology. So cheap off-the-shelf technology, helping startups in emerging markets get to where they need to go. Plus, something that worked to our advantage, which I was a little bit shocked about, is that, saying China was kind of sexy, because a lot of people don't understand what's happening in the Chinese ecosystem, and it's kind of unknown, but they've got these monster Alipays and JDs and Taobao and everything else. So when we come in and say, we want to come into your cap table, we want to sit on your board, we want to help you grow, it's worked really well for us. So companies in Latin America have a lot of US investors, but then, they want to be the Meituan of, and they want to be the Pinduoduo of, and that's why we'd like to, that's why it helped us out. So we think that there is fantastic knowledge to be transferred from what we've seen, and we think it's really exciting. And so far in the 2.5 years, we've invested in 43 companies, and our returns are, much more than we had expected, but we had to maneuver a little bit and be flexible in order to fit what each of the countries need.
Right. You brought valuations, something I'd like to come back to you and a panel about, just about comparable with other regions. But in the meantime, do take credit for spoiling the market. Jehan, if I can come to you, Pakistan is one of the most exciting markets as far as we see in the region, sitting here right now. But you are a homegrown, accelerator, investing in local companies. Speak to us. What excites you as you see the opportunities right now?
So we already have a very diverse set of founders within the country. We have a lot of people who are excited about technology. And now, because of what's been happening in the US, people have started to move back from the US, founders with a lot of experience who were working for large companies perhaps and are now trying to test the ground as far as the startup ecosystem is concerned. So they're forming companies. Then we have alumni, so to speak, from Kareem that set up a huge operation there. From the early days of 2012, 2013, we had Food Panda and the Raz. So people who worked for those companies and helped them scale are now forming their own companies and taking them to the next level. So I think that's what's exciting, because there is experience, there is global experience, there is experience of large startups, and now they are training the next generation to come and join them. The only thing that worries me is there's still not enough women who are taking the leap of faith and actually starting companies. But we're getting there. We're getting there. We are finding women not only in the traditional space where people think, oh, they'll start a fashion startup or something to do with anything glamorous. No, there are women who are founding fintech companies. There are women who are getting into the edtech and health tech space. So, Pakistan, being a big country in this region, has a lot of problems. And entrepreneurs are very good at trying to solve those problems. So we are finding, yes, fintech is a big play right now, but also edtech and health tech. And also you're seeing a lot of quick commerce companies. The pandemic has sort of forced a lot of people to look at, what they can do online. Digitization still hasn't happened completely in Pakistan, but this has pushed people online to try and do things that they would otherwise never have. Even personally, I would never have thought of buying groceries online. I like to look at the fruit and the vegetables and buy them. But then once I started, now I see the convenience, I see the kind of quality that is being delivered. And now I can do it, and I am doing it. And it's not limited to just the big cities in Pakistan. Now you see smaller cities get in on the act. You see the rural sector also getting in. Agriculture is a huge area which needs technology to disrupt it. We're seeing that happen. So there's this young man who came back from the US, went through a very expensive education, and then decided to go into agriculture. And his father said, hey, tell me, we've spent so much money on your education and now you want to become a farmer? But not a farmer. It's a startup called Faza, which is looking at the agri-tech space. They've just raised $2 million. So, hey, it can and is being done. So I think we're sort of disrupting what people considered that you were capable of doing. If you graduated from Stanford or MIT or one of those Ivy League colleges, everybody thought you would go into a multinational or you were, work for one of the big companies. Right. But now, they're getting into farming.
He's a tech farmer.
He's a tech farmer.
So I want, given that we don't have much time, I want to talk about risks. How do you see, as investors, risks in the marketplace that you operate in? But if I can frame this a bit broader, Walid, you talked about valuations. I think there's a concern about the inflation of valuation of companies that we've seen unprecedented increase in the last couple of years here, but also it's a global phenomena. But also, we have inflationary pressures, both in terms of costs of operations. We also have currency exposures. We have regulation that's changing, taxation is coming into this country, for example. What comes to mind when you think about risks in investing in emerging markets? And I'll just open up the panel. Maybe, Amal, you want to kick it off?
I think I'd probably take it back to talent. So what we're seeing that today, there's a war of talent, obviously, among, startups. So at the beginning, you have the excited founders that started their journeys. And then we're seeing also a different breed of founders. So you see the corporates, corporate people quitting their jobs and because they're seeing the excitement, in the MENA region, and they're starting their ventures. But then comes a time where, these startups would start facing issues where the talent is poached by other companies or poached by corporates or poached by bigger organizations because now they're emerging. So I think that's one of the biggest issues that I see with a lot of the founders today is how do I maintain the talent that I have acquired at the beginning and really keep them incentivized? ESOPs is one way, obviously, but is it enough? And that's a question that's coming up, I think, a lot. The second part that goes also down under the talent is the tech talent. So again, is there enough tech people available really to develop? And, as you mentioned rightly, you need the core team, to have a tech person to really scale, right? And that's an issue that we're also seeing, that there isn't enough. Should we outsource at the beginning? Should we really attract others and see would they stay? So that component, I see it as one of the very, very big ones, really, that we notice a lot with the startups. And obviously, the valuation story can go on and on, but today it's because of there is also an inflation and liquidity, right? And there is a lot of cash in the market, especially in the MENA, then the funds are really, what's happening, we're all looking at the same deal flow. I think that's how I would put it. You see a lot of companies are applying to multiple funds. So I'm hearing
a couple of things. Talent is obviously a big issue, particularly on the tech side, technical side, but also in terms of pipeline or deal flows. GB, what's your take on this?
At least coming up from our perspective, the biggest risk is that people don't deliver to potential. And to me, there is this massive opportunity ahead in the region. There are a few ways that may not play out. Talent density, some of that is one. I think, government can do a lot to kind of help on that and encourage people. I do see, in a good way, there's lots of competition in this geography between different countries. It's a good thing. But we have to be careful about that to not create these, walls around the country in a way that, the Dubai startup can't succeed in somewhere else and that startup can't succeed in Saudi startup can't succeed. You need the region to work together for you to build a large company. Otherwise, you will have small companies, smaller outcomes, which means you will not have enough capital coming in. I see that as a risk. I see a lot of positive in the competition, but we should just keep it healthy. I think that would be nice to see if there's a way for people to cooperate and make sure this region succeeds. I'd say that's one in my mind. And eventually, look, capital is a big enabler, and you will have to attract capital into the region for companies to grow. And I can tell you, from the limited time I've spent here, it's a huge advantage if you are a startup in this region, whether Dubai or Saudi. Capital access is a lot easier. If you're in Egypt, it's harder. Right? And, we have at least seen a couple of instances where really good founders end up taking strategic capital, etc., because just Series Bs and Series A are not easily available. So those are things that have to be solved at scale, especially, again, if people are to think about it as a region and come together to solve these problems.
Fantastic. And from you, Jay, from your perspective in Pakistan?
So I think Pakistan, there are a lot of risks whenever you're at an early stage of growth. But at the same time, there are a lot of opportunities. And you're seeing that startups that are starting out now are starting in multiple destinations. So they're not restricting themselves to Pakistan. They're also going to South Africa. They're coming to Dubai. They're coming to Saudi. And they are collaborating. So that, I think, is a very good sign. And talent, again, I agree with Amal, talent is something that needs to be continuously developed. And our government as well is working on it. The private sector is working on it because we realize it needs to be done. There's never been enough jobs in countries like Pakistan. So entrepreneurship is it. And it is the hope for a lot of people. And I think the fact that we are starting to go regional from the get-go is a great sign.
All right, thank you.
So I think the biggest risk is people not having patience. It's been a Cinderella story so far in the Middle East. I've been in the venture capital space for 12 years, and what we're seeing now in terms of companies and valuations and funds and money and international VCs coming in is absolutely fantastic. But basic business sense tells you that things go in cycles. And I'm really scared that a lot of the VCs and a lot of the companies will not be able to weather the storm that's eventually going to come. So this is not sustainable the way that it is. It's great. We should all celebrate and we should be very proud of everything that we've done over the past decade. But as business acumen says, that there will be a downside and then we'll come back up again. And between those 2 points, you need patience and you need grit. And you need to be able to wait it out, both on the investment side and on the entrepreneur side. So I think, there's the geopolitical risk and there's the currency risk. And sure, we suffer all of these things. But being a tech investor in some place like emerging markets in the MENA region, you accept that. You understand that that's part of your culture, that's part of your life. You have to live with it. You can't wait on the sidelines until you get, peace, love, and prosperity for you to invest. It's never going to happen. But on top of all of that, I really think that there's an onus on the global funds that are coming in to really be very mindful about what's happening. You can't take a business model that has X valuation in the States or in India these days and then just benchmark it to someone in MENA because of the fragmented market, because of the different KPIs that we have to use here. So there's an onus on us to say, hold on. We have to really mimic this and put a lens on it for MENA and let it grow. We have the conundrums of having a fragmented market, but I think the way to do it is a lot of M&A activity and consolidation.
Right.
So you have the same company, and we see that as MSA. Part of our strategy, we've invested in the same sort of business model in Nigeria, in Egypt, in Latin America, and in Saudi Arabia. And we think that there needs to be consolidation so that we can get the bigger companies to come in and say, actually, this makes sense now. Right. So patience is my number one. If we can wait it out, I think we'll get to where we need to go.
And I think what I'm picking up is also that, this is not sustainable in terms of the rapid increase of valuations. I think we all seem to be in agreement with that. In closing, if I can get 30 seconds from each of you, where do you see is the biggest excitement for you in terms of interest, whether it's a sector, a particular market or a particular stage of investments as you look into your theses right now? So we'll just go around the sofa very quickly.
Yeah, look, the Middle East makes sense for us.
Specifically?
Consumer spending is higher. It just makes sense. And we like fintech because we kind of have that pedigree. And we think we can, I know a lot of people have used this word, but we can actually leapfrog
And can I double down on specific markets, Walid?
Yeah, no, I think consolidation is the play, but definitely what's happening in Egypt, what's happening in Saudi, no company will be able to exit if they haven't looked at Egypt and Saudi, in my opinion, in the region. So that's a big one.
Jen, your excitement for a certain sector?
So I think all segments are growing right now. So they're all exciting. FinTech, there's a lot going on because payments has been a challenge from the beginning. But regulation has changed. The regulators are all listening. They see the potential. So I think we'll see much more growth in FinTech, but a little bit of consolidation, but also EdTech. EdTech, I think, is something that I see growing.
Thank you. JB?
Fintech and commerce.
Fintech and commerce. And is there a specific geo market that you...
I recently was in Riyadh, so I'm going to say Saudi. Dr. Nabil should be happy.
I think Saudi has left a lasting impression of that since you were there 2 weeks ago. Amal?
I'll bet on markets, and the founders in the markets. We're obviously in Saudi, but also we're looking at, what's happening in the whole region. So, and the attraction, between Saudi, vice versa, the other ones. So my bet on the evolution of this market and the speed of it. I've been in the ecosystem for the past decade. I can tell you today, we don't sleep from the excitement. And I speak on behalf of everyone in MENA, looking at deals, looking at the funds, following news. So you're one of us as well, So we bet on the market and the founders that are going to make it happen. And we're seeing the success already.
Yeah, great words. I think that summarized the optimism for us in the ecosystem. That being said, thank you very much, panelists, Walid, Jehan, GV, and Amal. A round of applause for them, please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.